Welcome to the Real Estate Dads, where we interview dads who are in the real estate space, raise capital for real estate, and try to make a better world for all of our kids because we're dads and that's what we care about. Today, we are doing our roundtable discussion where we hopefully get into some hot topics regarding immigration, something that's on a lot of people's minds right now regarding the election coming up soon. We've got Marco Jove and Edwin Epperson, two guys who have both been guests on our show before. Welcome to both of you. And then I'm Max Gonzalez, and my co-host is Trevor Celso. So let's jump in, and we will just start out. Trevor, I'll let you move into exactly your moderation.
I think we're just going to start with a quick, just go around the table and just get a quick 1-2 minute synopsis of where everyone stands so that we can kind of decide the direction of, what are the points that we're going to really debate about, if you will. So I'll go ahead and lead it off. I'm as libertarian as they come. I think the government should exist to do 2 or 3 things, and controlling immigration is hardly one of them. At least the peaceful immigrants. I think anyone that wants to come here and work should be allowed to do so with very little to no obstacles, and the government should focus strictly on violent individuals who may have who have a history of crime or some propensity for it. And that's about it. Let the market decide immigration. I think it'd be much more efficient than the government at determining who gets what job. And that labor market itself would incentivize or not the total flow of immigration.
Marco, let's hear yours next.
So coming from an immigrant, as you guys know, I'm from Venezuela. I have my flag over here in the back. Proud to be as well as an American citizen now. But I do think that immigration topic is pretty interesting because you can see from different perspectives. My perspective is that immigration should be controlled on a legal basics. What I'm saying is if you want to come to this country and make a living and find new opportunities, as my family and I did 12 years ago, you got to do it the right way. So I know a lot of people. People are coming from my country and other Central American and South American countries, crossing the borders and, doing all kind of stuff to just get in, right? So I'm not much into politics, but what I think is if you just open your borders with no control to whomever you want to come, you basically are run out of control. And I think that's actually one of the things that's happening. I see a lot of Venezuelan people coming to United States illegally, staying in different states, example, New York, doing disasters. There are people that, I'm not going to say they don't belong to be here, but there are people that really don't understand how the system works, and they think that they are entitled to be given the benefits that they're actually receiving. So without the need of work, without the need of to pay rent and things to that nature. So I am totally agreed of immigration, while is I would call it a legit, legal, worked immigration. And I think that's one of the best things that I saw in United States when I moved. It was a country of opportunity to all of us, but at the same time, it was actually pretty hard to come. So I invested a lot of money to get my visas, to get to buy businesses, to support my legal status for years, and that's what I'm supporting on immigration. I don't like people just swinging in and sneaking in, and then the government have to just maintain them from our behalf. So, yeah.
Edwin, let's hear it.
So I would take a sort of a stance on a combination of both Trevor and Marco's position. I'm married to a Colombiana, and she is not a legal citizen yet. She hasn't taken her citizen exam, but she's able to live here because obviously she's married to me. I do believe, Marco, I am a big proponent of smaller government. I think that, unfortunately, unless you delegate it down to the states, the border states, right? But then you've got the ability now with all different modes of travel, somebody that comes across. And regardless of where I stand on, how does somebody legally get here? Because I think that's obviously a process that needs to be revised. Our legal process for people that want to come here legally, like you, Marco, I think it's way over encumbered. It's way too hard. At the same time, if we can, in my opinion, if we completely demolish it and just like, hey, as long as you tell us that you want to come here and work, come on in. And then it's like, well, now there's literally no control. And that's basically what we've seen over the past 4 years with the current administration and how they've approached is like, hey, if you're fleeing from your country and you're claiming political asylum, hey, come on in, just come on in. And what we're seeing is an exponential rise in crimes that are being committed by illegal immigrants. And I think that that's the key, right? Is somebody comes here and their very first act of coming into the country is to violate the laws that are established in the country. Well, that sets a precedence for that person's attitude. Not to say that they are always going to be a criminal, but that's their first act of coming here. And so I think that there's definitely a balance that needs to be done as far as where's the federal government's role, what is the state government's role, and at what point does it make sense to enact controls over immigrants who are wanting to come here for a better life, to work, to build a family, to build something of substance for generational wealth versus those who want to come here and take advantage of the systems that are in place for American citizens. And so that's my position.
So I'm in agreement with you, Edwin, generally on Edwin and Marco. I'm in agreement. As far as immigration goes, my stance on it is I'd be a lot, and I guess within this topic debate, I think a lot of the concern is regarding like, should there be this mass deportation? And I will kind of, Trevor, you just commented on it, but you didn't say this from what our previous conversation was what are we teaching our kids in regards to turning people away who are looking for a better life, which I actually thought was a really good statement in the sense that like, that is something I hadn't thought about. I do want to teach my kids to be moral. I do want to teach my kids to be just. And at what point do we look at that and go, hey, turning away immigrants is, people who are honestly seeking asylum or are looking for a better life, what are we saying to those people? But in the libertarian sense, which it's so funny because the idea of being libertarian, I would love to be libertarian, but I also just go, I live in the United States. Like, what does that even mean? Like, I might want to be libertarian, but I live in a country that's got a massive, big government that we're all seeing how problematic that is. So I might want to be libertarian, but that really changes the fact that we all are demanded to pay taxes. I could go as far as calling the government organized crime, but their process of being the machine that takes tax dollars and allocates them however they want, including paying for services that are in regards to people coming to this country and are then taking services from the individuals here. I look at that and I go, I might want to be libertarian, but this is just the situation that we're in.
Well, what is the actual situation? Like, what is the ratio of government resources consumed to taxes paid of immigrants, illegal or otherwise?
Yeah, and I think that's where I go back to going, like, I don't have this view that like all immigrants are bad, but I do have this view that the government has a process in place where they're taking money and we don't even know where it's going. And I guess I'll come back to my original statement. I'm not as anti individuals coming to this country. I'm not mass deportation. I'm not in promotion of some kind of mass deportation, but I do look at it and I go, I do want fair elections. That's the biggest one that I want. I want fair elections, and I want individuals who are coming to this country to actually not just come in and want to work, but are saying, hey, I'm now part of the individuals of the United States who came here to have all those things you're mentioning. They want a better life. They want to improve where they want to improve the direction they're going for them and their families. And those are things that I want for them. But when I see a lot of promotion for foreign countries or for the U.S. to spend dollars on foreign countries, this goes on minor to major. Maybe minor to major isn't the right term, but dollars are being spent on Haiti versus dollars are being spent on Israel. Part of me just goes like, look, I don't care either one of those countries. Those aren't the U.S. So why is the U.S. spending dollars on places that are in other places in the world? And the part of me goes, well, because you've got people here in this country who are voting to have dollars sent to these other places. And those are the things that I get a lot more concerned about in regards to a population of a country that has a system that can vote more money to be allocated towards wherever that voting pool is designating it.
So we got the typical concerns here: crime, use of government resources, fair elections. Right? Those are the top three that in the media and among political candidates is like these are all bad and it's because of immigrants. And like, but what are the actual numbers? Does anyone here know the actual crime rates for immigrants, both legal and illegal ones, compared to native-born citizens?
Are you talking about crime rates that are actually being reported at the federal level or the state levels?
Any level.
Well, then I think it's impossible for anybody to actually know the numbers.
So the state of Texas has those numbers. They're the only
state of Texas, one state out of 59.
It's the only. I mean,
Texas, if you're going to use the state of Texas numbers to justify your position, well, you still have 49 other states that may or may not be reporting based on the political positions.
Right. So we don't know what we don't know. So if we're going to sit here and say there's a precipitous rise in crime rates from immigrants, like we got to point to information somewhere, right? Or otherwise you're just saying it and you don't really know, right? It's just purely an assumption. And the only
wait, but hang on though. Is it purely an assumption that we need like hard stats, or is there any crime that comes from immigrants is too much? Like if there's crime,
there's no such thing as zero crime. If you're shooting for perfection, you'll never achieve it. Let's do nothing.
But we're even talking about like if you've got some of it, do like that is something you can immediately point at and go, hey, look.
Let's start with knowing what it actually is, maybe.
No, I would argue you don't need to know what it is because it's there. We know it's there. We know if there are any crimes being committed by people who are coming in the country legally, that's crime. It might not be one that we're going, okay, we have this many per thousand, but that's something you're immediately looking at.
We do have that though. Like we have those numbers, at least from the state of Texas, which is the only state, to my knowledge, that actually tracks immigration status alongside criminal convictions and arrests and things like that.
I mean, I look at it still just binary. Is there crime committed by illegals? Is it 1%?
The answer is always going to be yes. It's true for native-born Americans. So should we kick them out too?
No, unfortunately, they already have the standing of being a U.S. citizen. There's nowhere to send them back to. But if you're talking about foreign nationals who are coming in, well, that is something we can fix.
So should we prosecute an entire group of people because some individual members of it do things wrong, or should we focus on just prosecuting the individual members doing things wrong?
Well, I don't think anybody advocates for prosecuting the entire group.
Yeah. Well, when you say that they can't come in because individual members of their group commit crimes, you're effectively prosecuting an entire group. Like none of you can come in.
I don't think anybody has said that nobody can come in. That's not the process.
So then we're right back to the concern of crime rates, saying that there's a precipitous rise because of immigration. Like this is a common thing said, and it's just patently false.
If they're here illegally, they've already broken the law. There's a precipitous crime rate right from the get-go.
I'm talking about violent crime, like real crimes where people are hurt. Someone walking across the border does not harm me, right? But like when you hurt a member of my family,
it doesn't harm you physically or your family, but it's affecting the economy
positively.
Yeah, let me. When I was a kid, my mom and dad had to find my my tourist visa when I was a little kid. So I'm talking from my personal experience. In order for me to come here, and I know people, including from my family, that they want to come to the United States and they can't because they don't have a legal visa. You have other countries in the world that they require visa to go in. It's not only United States. There are other countries. You go to China, you need a visa. So or Hong Kong, whatever. But other countries. So in this particular case, I was lucky enough. The embassy was still open back in the days in my country, and I was able to get a visa. But when you go to get a visa, you got to stand in front of an American officer and, show good faith. They see your records, they see who you are, where you live, what you do. Do you work? You don't work? Where do you work? How much money you make? And then based on your current situation, they allow you or not the visa. So that's what I'm talking about. The legal ways to come in is through a legal visa. What I think is happening is everybody feels that they just can't come in whatever they please. And believe me, I know a lot of people that have come, in the other ways around. So, but at the same time, I have people in my family that they can come the legal way. So, how do you control who comes and who can't come is through a visa or certain type of documents that allow you to, come through a plane or whatever legally in the country, because somebody from United States already saw somehow who you are. The thing is, and I'm going to just say a name here, that El Tren de Aragua, I don't know if you heard about him. El Tren de Aragua, it's a criminal organization from Venezuela.
Those are the little bicycle guys, right?
Pretty badass guys.
The moped dudes?
No, these are the guys who are taking over the
apartment dudes,
apartment complexes in Aurora.
And it's right now it's pretty close to become a worldwide criminal organization, or organized criminal organization. And those dudes just entered the country illegally. And there's a lot of other Venezuelans that are good, they're working. They just came in looking for opportunities. But it's pretty hard how to find and cherry pick who is good and who is bad if you don't filter who is coming in through a certain type of, filter. Basically, that visa I was telling you about. So as to your point, Trevor, I'm a Venezuelan, and I can't say, you punish all the Venezuelans that are crossing the border illegally, because that applies to Colombian, that applies to Nicaraguan, that applies to Mexican, that applies to everybody that is crossing the border or some other way. But in reality, what I think personally is, if you open it without control, then these type of situations arises. Whatever crimes are happening.
We don't have an uncontrolled situation. The situation is arise in an environment that's very tightly controlled, to be clear.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, whatever is controlled or not, what I think is happening more than I feel it happened before. So that's my perspective, without having any certain numbers.
Trevor, what do you mean controlled? Like, when you say the process has been controlled, like, I don't understand what you mean. I have no recognition of control. I feel like it's just like an open border and people are just coming through.
Well, they're doing a bad job of enforcing current immigration policy, because it creates a lot of barriers that no one can practically get through, with the exception of people like Marco, who happened to have a six-figure savings when he was living in Venezuela, and he was able to use that to buy a business in the United States to get it. Not everyone can do that, right? Most people there is no practical way for them to get here, and there is not enough enforcement personnel to stop all of them who are trying. So one point I might suggest is that if the government was truly focused on just weeding out criminals, because right now it's like that people who have no criminal history at all and legitimately just want to come in and work, they can't get in. There's no practical path for them. So for the sake of argument, if there was a simplified version of immigration control where they were really just looking for criminal behavior, criminal history, and if you, in absent that, you can come in and work, then government resources would be way less strained if they were really just focusing on people that have a crime history and not just swooping up. I grew up 2 miles from the border of Mexico, and there was Border Patrol. My parents have 100 acres in Arizona, all right, that I grew up on. We had illegal crossings every single night through our property when I was growing up. Border Patrol had just patent access to our property. They were just rolling in and scooping people up who I am confident a vast majority had no criminal history or intentions and no practical path into the United States. That's what government resources are being strained by, is people that are completely peaceful and just want to be here, and they're going and chasing them down.
So would you say that the solution to this, to at least the availability of legal immigration, Trevor, is not necessarily the abolition of Border Patrol or the complete opening up of the border, so that the majority of, and I would agree with you, and I think everybody, at least anybody that's thinking, is looking at, okay, look at the millions and millions of illegal immigrants that have come across. Are there millions and millions? Are they all criminals? No, I would say that the majority of Americans, at least I do, I feel that, I believe that the criminal element is microscopic in the scope of the amount of illegals. However, the solution, in my opinion, is not to just throw open the borders like, well, we made a mistake, like anybody can come in and we'll just filter it out as it happens. I think that the solution actually is enforcement of the border, but a complete revision, a gutting, if you will, of all the bureaucratic red tape that slows the whole process down. Because I think that the whole, was it the EB-5 visa? Like, hey, you can come here if you're an investor. Well, you've got to have, like you said, 6 figures. That's ridiculous. Like, there are people that are good, hardworking Colombians, Venezuelans, Guatemalans. I mean, you name all the countries, and we're just talking Central and South America. All the countries that would love to come here for a better life, but they don't have the $6 million or the 6-figure dollars. So accessible. I am absolutely in favor of that. Let's make this more accessible for those that are hardworking and want to come here and work and build something. But I don't think that the solution is, well, because the government's really bad at managing things, which you and I know that very, very intimately. We're just going to blow open the border and just have no policy whatsoever, and we'll just filter out the riffraff after crime is committed.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would disagree with you. My main point of clarification there is that I don't think the government should control it in an economic fashion on the basis of like, well, they affect the economy, so let's place some controls in place in the name of that. Like, government's not good at managing the economy, and no matter what type of good it is, and labor is a good, right? It's a resource that people pay for. But for protection purposes, if it's truly for that, like, that's the only thing they should be doing, is just protecting us from proven criminals trying to enter this country.
So, Trevor, I guess I got one question for you. And in your libertarian views, do you think there should be no borders anywhere on the planet?
I wouldn't. In my libertarian view, I think the government should be solely focused on preventing crime by prosecuting individuals.
So,
right?
and the reason I'm asking that is because, in the sense of, averaging everyone in the planet, like you just say, hey, people are wanting to go someplace else and they want to get a better life and they should be allowed to go in there and the government should be involved in that. But how far is the government's reach supposed to go?
Like, if there's a wall and a point of entry and there's some sort of check, like, again, super simplified version, right? There's a big wall, so be it, right? Maybe that's a good idea or not. I'm actually not 100% sure where I stand on that, on like what the mechanism is that people like filter through to get to the country. But should there be some sort of mechanism that people filter through to get in? Yeah, because you probably should check them for at least criminal history,
so
right?
Trevor,
at a minimum. But that should be the focus.
So it actually, Trevor, sounds like you're just pro legal immigration and not pro illegal immigration. Is that where we're coming back to?
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, I think what is considered illegal immigration, though, shouldn't be. I think a lot of the immigration that's happening should be converted to legal. Or I sympathize with it. What's that?
Have you seen all of these visa and passport documents that are like ripped up that they found at the border? Like, when people enter the U.S., they come in with like no documentation like whatsoever. Have you seen this? They find that when people come in, they get picked up by Border Patrol almost intentionally. It's apparently a horrible trek to even get to the border, and then when they get to the U.S. border, they're almost looking for Border Patrol, but they want no identification, so they can't be sent back or tied to any individual country, and then they end up in processing where they kind of go through and they're let into the U.S. and then they find a place that they're going to be going to. And, and there's been a lot of stuff about these apps that I guess the U.S. Immigration Department has actually allowed these individuals to download on phones. Apparently the phone is something they're either given when they get to the U.S. or they are allowed to have a phone when they come in. But it tells them how to get assistance once they're in the U.S. Almost like ringing the bell. Hey, come to the U.S., you can come here and we can assist you with getting, into the country and getting services, and those are things where I look at that stuff and, and I go back to, at what point is the government trying to allow illegal immigration? This is why I go back to the voting thing. I do think there's a voter scandal. I do not think we have fair elections. I don't think that things are happening the way that I do think we have corruption in our own government. So the fact that we've got, individuals who are coming in who are being added to voter rolls in certain places. And do I think it's 100%? No. But do I think it's some? Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Is it detectable? Like, what's the actual detectable? Because no one's actually detected a finite amount. Like, it's this.
Well, that's the
thing. I know of.
But that's the thing. How would you, if you've got a system that's already corrupt? Because even when we're talking about like crime statistics, and and Edwin, I wasn't sure if you had a comment regarding this, but do you guys believe the crime statistics? I don't. I think they're completely manufactured. But
if they said that they were more violent, I bet you'd believe them. If there was some confirmation bias there.
I don't know. It was really funny. I did a thing this morning where I was looking up some information for this podcast, and I was looking for a little bit of, call it, red leaning stuff. But I typed in Tucker Carlson immigration. That's all I put in the search bar. Tucker Carlson and immigration. And these were the headlines that came up. Tucker Carlson joked about deporting me on air. Tucker Carlson suggesting immigrants make the U.S. dirtier. Tucker Carlson won't be spewing his anti-immigration venom. The worst things Tucker Carlson said on Fox News. Tucker Carlson, a huge immigration crisis. I'm reading every one of them, by the way. Immigration crisis, making up the statistics. Why white supremacists love Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson calls on Fox News to fire host after anti-immigration. Tucker Carlson plays dumb on replacement theory. Tucker Carlson says immigration make the U.S. poorer. This is 100%. All I typed in was Tucker Carlson immigration. That was it. I didn't write in anything else other than that. And these are all of the results online. 100% of them that are on the first page of Google. And, when I look at this stuff and I go, gosh, I mean, finding unbiased, and I've read some of these things. I've seen some of the stuff they're even talking about within him as a commentary. And, and for anyone who says that the media is not, 100% leaning certain directions or being controlled, I would argue it is 100%. And we've got 4 people on this call right now that I don't think everyone's in agreement that should be this biased. I mean, everyone here said some things that are pretty middle of the road.
We could look at actual stats that people have diligently tried to produce. It's tough when it's like a shadow economy of immigrants who are undocumented, but nonetheless, it's been given an honest effort by multiple organizations, and they have all found that 2 main things. That one, there's a net positive contribution to the economy for several reasons. First of all, they do productive work, make things, and then they are consumers at the same time, so that creates jobs, right? By that additional consumption. They got to buy food, they got to buy clothes, they pay for services, they pay for things, they pay for taxes directly and both indirectly through payroll and sales tax and other mechanisms. And so the net contribution to economy is positive, and the net contribution to government is typically break even, if not positive, which is better than native-born citizens because the government does spend more than it takes in taxes. So by default, native-born citizens receive more in benefits than they pay in taxes by and large. That's why we constantly have a growing deficit. Immigrants are the exception to that. They typically
I would disagree with that.
I mean, again, the stats that exist.
So where are the stats? What stats that you're looking at that reflect that?
I'll show you one right here. So the National Academy, I think I can share this. Just share this. Here we go. Fiscal impact of immigration is the most recent study I know of. It was done by the National Academy of Sciences. The data went to 2012. The Cato Institute came in and replicated their findings and then brought it to current, and then they made several adjustments to it. But across all of them, we've got recipient divided by outlays, and under
Trevor,
different.
Can you zoom that way in?
Probably, yeah, totally. All right, so first generation. So they broke it down like 8 different ways. We got first generation and their dependents. So they come in, and not only do they produce and consume resources, so do the children that they have, right? And they compared that across first generation, second generations whose parents are immigrants, and then people who just have a full family full of native-born citizens. And the total, if you say that immigrants are also responsible for the cost of like defense, which theoretically should be the same regardless of immigration flow, they're protecting borders and foreign interests, right? Then it's about the same based on the National Academy of Science Medicine, about a 70% rate of taxes paid versus benefits received compared to 78 for native-borns. When you start to just look at the marginal, immigrations just pay the marginal cost of public goods. So like non-defense things. So, an extra student at school, at public school, for example, they're about even. Now, this is just for all immigrants. This is everyone from a high school dropout, undocumented high school dropout that smuggled their way into the United States to people with PhDs that legally immigrated, right? If you just average all of them, it's about break even. They essentially pay the same amount in taxes as they do as they consume in government resources compared to native-borns who only pay 74% of what they consume in government resources. Which
how do we get this, Trevor, without Tren de Agua and fentanyl epidemics and the problems that come along with immigration also? Like, how do you get the two of these together?
You focus on criminality almost exclusively, which is not the current structure of the immigration process.
So we have to close the border and actually have a process by in which we let in everyone who we can actually vet and make sure.
I would start with the process first, because everyone's like, well, let's just close the border and figure it out. It's like, what? It's broken.
Aren't those things the same? I mean, don't these things have to happen at the same time? I mean,
No.
if you ask me, I would go, no, you have to close the border first and then figure it out on the inside. Because, because if you're trying to fix, you ever try to clean your house when your kid's making a mess? I mean, like, my God, like, if you're
yeah. So stop the kid from making the mess.
You build the
then
wall.
Clean the house, right?
You build the wall. And
that's not
close
working. That's doing a thing that's not working. That's the building the wall is like part of the kid making the mess. It's the kid.
How is that?
Wall would be actually making the kids stop.
Building the wall is making.
So what indication is there that walls actually prevent immigration?
Look,
into this
between
country?
Egypt and Gaza is a prime example. There's a giant wall that separates Palestine and Gaza, or Palestine and Egypt, and they don't let anybody through.
Yeah, Egypt is a dictatorship. So
yes,
right.
It is. But the focus, the question was, show me a wall that works. That's a wall that works
in America, in particular. Where can you? Because we
have
more wall, but we have more of it.
We have portions of a wall.
We have more of it.
We don't have a complete wall. That wall was stopped day one of Joe Biden's presidency.
And I think also part of the question here is, what is the balance between how many good immigrants come in to the potential damage of others that are potentially horrendous? And I think that's kind of the future concern that a lot of people are having is, if you have someone who murders a family or and I've read these headlines of individuals that are undocumented individuals, and Tren de Agua is the group we keep citing here.